Hi, I'm Ed Parcaut, your host of Inner Edison. What I'd like you to take away from today's show is our greatest growth comes from our greatest failures. Today's guest is Chellie. I am, it's one of those things. It's like Chellie Phillips. It's one of those things with people's names. Y'all, you think you have it, and then something pops in your head and you don't. And let's welcome her and get to know her story and her journey. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me today.
Yeah. We should blame our parents when they mess up on our names. I mean, nobody ever can say my last name, Parco, right? We do another podcast called Helping the Brave, which is for veterans once you take the uniform off. I've had the same co-host for like the last 6 months. And the other day, she's like, Ed Parcaut. It's like, you don't know my name. You've been doing this for 6 months.
I had a fifth grade teacher one time that kept changing my name. She'd make it Chellie with a SH. She would actually change my name on the paper in fifth grade. And like my mom would go nuts when I'd take it home. And it's like, by now, I think I can spell my name. So,
That's funny. So a little bit about your background, because a lot of my listeners aren't going to know who you are. And can you give a little bit of your background?
yeah, absolutely. So I have over 25 years of experience in communications, marketing, and PR, which is kind of has been really helpful when I decided to branch off and do Found Successfully Ever After. That kind of came from I worked for 14 years with a group of college women. I was a sorority advisor on a college and campus in Alabama, and so I would see a ton of these girls. They were graduating. They put the time in, got the degree, they'd walk across the stage, pick it up, but they couldn't find jobs in their field that they had been in. And so putting all those together, really got really interested in building personal brands and how that you can use those effectively to move your career forward, how you can actually get your foot in the door some places. And then later on in life, ended up using it for myself when I had to transition jobs after being someplace for 20 years. So that's kind of me in a nutshell.
All right. But let's stay on the personal branding, if you don't mind,
Yeah.
for a minute.
Mhm.
Because I always tell, I'm in the mortgage industry, and it's just like real estate industry. You brand yourself and then your company. And a lot of people don't realize that. So when even if you're working for somebody else, you need to do your own brand, because that's how people find you and they come to you, not the company you work for usually. Right. So
Yeah.
how did you help them build their brand?
So there's several different pieces to it. Like if you're a new person heading into the job market, that kind of thing, we work a lot with resumes and cover letters and making sure that your resume doesn't lead just like a previous job description after previous job description, but how you can actually show the value that you bring to the table. What have you accomplished, whether that's through volunteering, whether that's through a position that you held earlier, what kind of skill sets that you bring. And then if you're transitioning careers, how can you use the skills that you have maybe in a different way that would benefit another industry? Maybe it's out of the box thinking and that kind of thing that you can actually show where I may not have all of these things that you're looking for, but I have this and I have experience and I can make these things happen for you by doing that. And then the other piece of it is, the digital side of everybody has a brand now. Everybody's posting online, whether it's Instagram, whether it's Snapchat, whether it's LinkedIn for the more professional piece of it. But everything you do, I tell people that their personal brand is what people think about you when you're not in the room. Like, so you're creating that image, whether you intend to or not, by the way you show up at work, by what you do, by the value that you bring, or maybe it's from something that you post or tweet out, and so the really good thing is that you are the one that controls that. And the younger you can start, the better off that you are because you can grow it throughout your career.
Right. Because I mean, some people have to cancel their accounts before they get into the business world because they grew up on it. I mean, and that's a detriment and a good thing to a certain point. What I mean by that is, when we were growing up, we didn't have that. We had a phone, we had a note. You wrote a note, and only if that note got to the wrong person, you were in trouble for a short period of time. Now you could say something when you're a kid that's so stupid, and now better, and then it comes to bite you later down the road. So I think a lot of people should have, and if you're when you're a kid, have two accounts: a private account and a regular account. The account that you let everybody see on, and then the other account that's just for you and your friends. My son has that. He's in the Army, right? Because you
Mhm.
can't say certain things that you want to have in this way. But but then you still have to be careful, because the wrong person could still cut and paste and put that stuff out there. To your point about your branding and how you're going across, employers look at all your social media, if they're smart employer, to see what they're getting into. Because I mean, I'm not saying they can but they will look at your stuff to see what you say.
Yeah, the vast majority of them will Google you first before they ever decide whether they're gonna bring you in for an interview or not. It doesn't matter what your qualifications are on paper. They're gonna if they like you, they're gonna stick that in there and see what pops up to see, "Oh, maybe I need to rethink this before I do that or not." So, yeah, being very proactive and taking the steps ahead of time if you're, if you're in the market for a new job or if you're looking to change that kind of thing, then, it's much more beneficial if you start working ahead of time and planting some of these right seeds and everything because you can pretty much guarantee it. I think the stats like 87% now of HR folks or hiring managers actually Google someone before they even issue the invitation to come for an interview.
Well, it's no different than clients and prospects. They're going to Google you before they even do anything. And, you need stuff to come up, good stuff to come up
Mhm.
and know what you're talking about. Let's talk because, we're about, business owners and people, business and growing your own business. So you started a business out of this,
I
right? You
did.
left the
Mhm.
corporate world and started your own thing. What has been your journey? And you want to share some of that?
Yeah, sure. Well, so this became really personal to me probably 5 years ago. I had worked at a utility in Alabama for about 21 years, and we had a management change. And when the new CEO came in, basically the priorities of the organization shifted. The way that I had a CEO before where it was very open door. You were very much included in conversation. I was at a supervisory level there, so we were, staff meetings. You had input, and you were keeping up with what was going on, and then basically had someone come in that. Basically, I'm going to do it my way, the highway, and I don't need anybody's input for it. And then part of my job at that time dealt with community and bringing in community resources, working out, sharing some of the programs that we had and that kind of thing. And the community focus wasn't there anymore. And so, really, my priorities, my values, and that kind of thing really didn't align with that organization anymore. But it took some time, instead of realizing, you just don't have to stay here, like you have plenty to offer and that you can and do these things. It got to the point where I would just actually dreaded going to work every day. You'd pull up in the parking lot and you'd be like, oh God, what am I going to have to deal with today when I get there? What's it going to be like today? What's it going to impact? How am I going to feel when I leave here? And the sad thing is that you don't just take that to you, you end up taking it home with you. So it affects your family, it affects your friends, like you go to lunch and all you want to do is gripe about what a bad place you is work and nobody wants to have lunch with you anymore because it's like why do I want to spend my time around all this negativity? And so it became real clear to me one evening. I was working an event, and because I worked in PR and communications, I also did a lot of our member information pieces that we did. So, a magazine that went out to our customers. And I got a text while I was sitting at that meeting basically saying that, hey, my 16-year-old daughter doesn't think our magazine's any good. And basically, did you get your skills out of a Fruit Loop box? Like the prize inside that it used to be. And so I sat there that night. That was a Friday night. So I'm still working on a Friday night. Everybody's at home doing the kind of thing. And I remember just being so mad and so upset. And it took me a couple of days, to realize that, hey, he doesn't get to determine your value. You determine your value of who you are and what you bring to the table. And it really took that one moment where, you've got this guy who really doesn't value what you do, that basically thinks anybody can do this and it's like pulling a prize out of the Fruit Loop box, that you can make that change. You don't have to stay in that environment. And so, after working with the college women for so many years and kind of developing a plan for boosting LinkedIn and doing resumes in a way that showed value statements versus job descriptions and that kind of thing, basically, I was like, there's other people that need these skills. There's other people that are stuck someplace after 20 years where they don't feel like they're valued anymore. They're not challenged anymore, and they want to make these changes. And so that turned into 2 books and some private coaching that I do now and some online courses. And so I'm really sharing that branding message out with a couple of different groups. I have a program that is specific to like college graduates getting ready to graduate to get prepared for that first big entrance into the job market. And then I also work specifically with clients that are transitioning. They've been in a career field and maybe they want to make the change, or they've been someplace for several years and they're ready, they're not going to see any more growth where they're at now and they're ready to move on to something else.
Now, prior to the Fruit Loop thing, did you think about owning your own business or going out on your own ever?
I mean, I had played with a few things, along the way, like some direct sales things, like some, like person to
Mul
person,
Right.
multi parties.
Multi, which they don't
Yeah,
call it
multi-level
anymore.
marketing,
Yeah,
yeah,
they don't call it
like
that.
some
Pyramid
of the
schemes. I'm
yeah,
just kidding.
some of the parties and different things like that, but I never that was just never really my thing. And I think this really kind of settled and resonated with me because it was so personal to me at that point in time, is that um, when I first started I was trying to make the decision of, do I go someplace else, or do I start my own? And it so happened that I had somebody that asked me to work with them. It was actually one of my sorority girls' family members that had reached out to me. Hey, I know you helped her when she was getting ready to do this. Would you help me do this for me? And so it showed me then that there is actually a need for this out there, and that there are people that who haven't job searched in 10 or 15 years and don't really realize that the way you do it now versus the way we used to do it is totally different, and the way you prepare for interviews is different, the type of questions that you get asked are different, and the way that you position yourself as an expert in your field is something that you really have to work on so that you can stand out and get that attention from that hiring manager.
So, all right, and I'm staying here for a second because a lot of people now, well, more so than I think ever in the history that I've known and I've been around, is looking to do their own thing, right? More people are looking to work from home. More people are working to do their thing. But some people work for companies like you did. Did you have a retirement there?
I did.
Yeah. Did you get your retirement?
I did, ended up rolling it over and doing some things like that, but yeah.
Okay. The reason I bring that up is because some people work for large corporations and they're like, I need to stay here another 10 years to get my retirement or get this. I can't go do this. I mean, I'm not saying my wife's thinking about doing it, right? But she works for a large company and same thing. And I'm like, what's your plan after you retire? Because you're going to still want to do something, right?
Mhm,
Because these days, even if you retire, you don't, there's only so much for most guys golfing you can do. And for women, they golf too. I don't want to say they don't, but I'm just saying there's only so much of that you can do. And then you're bored and then you
mhm,
have to do something. And I know many people who have retired, older people, and then they're not here a couple years later, right? They're just gone. And so I think it's very important that if you want to start a business, don't wait, do it now, see what it can do. That side hustle they talk about,
mhm,
the 5 to 8 or whatever they talk about, you need to do it to see what you can build, because before you know it, you could actually build something better than what you're going to get from the other people. Because I mean, even if someone says they're going to give you a pension when you retire, it might only be 3 grand a month, right? Because you get a certain percentage, and then your spouse gets a survivor benefit, right? And that's even less. So it's really not a lot of money that people think it is, and you can replace that very easily. And I'm talking from somebody who's never worked in the corporate world. I've always worked for myself or as a business owner. I did work for somebody else, but I was always self-employed through them, right? I'm in the mortgage industry, so I'm a loan officer. And so it's different for me. I've always been that person, but I do see the other side where people are afraid to make that move because they are afraid. You made that move. What got you past that move?
a lot of it had to do with the frustration of where I was at that point in time, where I just didn't want to feel that way anymore. Like I literally, like I said earlier, you drive in the parking lot and you just felt it in the pit of your stomach that this is just not. I don't want to deal with this every day from here on out. And like you said, I still have a lot of good years in me, and even if I had stayed there for another 10 before I could have looked at even retiring or anything like that, then what was I going to do then? And I'm very active. I love being out in the community. I love being around people doing that kind of thing. And so I knew I would never be one of those people that would be happy just sitting at home working in a flower bed or something like that. That's just so not me. It would never happen. And so
You sound like my wife. Sorry.
and so, this was such a great opportunity to be able to put together, things that really matter to me. And, I was able to because of the years that I'd been there, walk away with a certain amount to kind of cushion the blow. But a lot of things I see with my clients that are, that are coming to me and that they're not happy where they are anymore. It is exactly like what you said. There's that fear of what happens if I walk away? What's going to happen to this? Can I replace it? Can I do this? And I heard a long time ago, and it's something that's kind of stuck with me, is that fear and excitement, those two feelings come from the same place in your brain. And so if you just kind of repackage it, the way you think about it and the way you do these kind of things and turn that fear into that excitement of what if it does work, then that's really kind of motivating to get you to it, and you can do it in small stages. Set yourself up for success. And the same thing that works with personal branding for careers works for you in that if it's your own business, because you have to set that expectation for people, what they're going to get from you, who you are, what's the expertise you bring to them. So you have to brand yourself, no matter whether it's for your career or whether it's for a business that you're running yourself, so that people know what they're getting and they want to come to you and feel like that you can do the things for them that they need.
So how do you get your clients past that?
So a lot
You
of
know
it
what I'm talking
is.
about? Because what you just said, because it's easier to say it than to do it. So,
Mhm.
I like to, before we came on, I went on your thing and I saw you had a whole thing of like a process, but I couldn't find this. When I look over here, it's another screen that I'm trying to find something for what we're talking about. But this I think is very important what we're talking about right now, getting past the fact that the fear. I mean, Inner Edison's all about our greatest accomplishments come from our greatest defeats. You need to make mistakes, learn from them, and go forward, because it's going to happen. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to maybe, be scared one month because you don't have enough money to pay for something, but you'll get there. You just have to focus and keep going. So I'll shut up and let you talk now.
Yeah, so depending on their circumstance, if it's like if they're going from one corporate environment to another, a lot of it is the fear of, well, I know what I have here every day, day in and day out. I know the people that I'm going to encounter. I know the clients that I'm going to have who are going to be problems. I know the coworker that I'm going to have to deal with that, or who I supervise that I'm going to have to struggle with, or I know the CEO's expectations and our vision and that kind of thing. So some of it is, depending on, like I said, on their situation, some of it is just making sure that they understand that, whatever circumstance you're in, you're going to have these same people at this other organization as well. So you're going to have the coworkers you love, and you're going to have the coworkers that drive you crazy. You're going to have the people that you supervise that knock it out of the park, and you're going to have the ones that require extra effort and some attention to get them to do what they want to do. And so sometimes it's just a matter of looking past the fear and realizing that you already have all the skills that you need to deal with those kind of things. And if you move your focus to what you're fearful of, to what can actually be, then once it's what you focus on is what you become, and what you start manifesting and that kind of thing. So if you're focused totally on the fear side of it, you're never going to move forward. So a lot of what I do with the clients in that sense is but we're just talking through it a lot of times, is like what are, like, make a list of your fears. What are they? And let's walk through them and let's see, like, what is it, if it is monetary. So what can you do? Okay, well, I can start putting aside some now. I can start small if I want to start out on my own. I can not quit until I have two or three clients built up that I know are going to provide this set of steady income or whatever. Or even like when you're transitioning jobs, some people are really afraid that someone's going to find out, that they're looking for something else. And I look at that too as a, so what if they do? Either A, they're going to realize what they have in you and try to make it where it's more appealing for you to stay, or either you realize that I am not valued here. And if you're not valued there, then why do you want to stay anyway? Because you are not getting what you need from them. To me, the perfect situation is where a company is investing you and you're investing your time and efforts into them. It's a win-win that way. You're feeling the growth, you're feeling the education, the training, the challenges that might come that keep you interested and excited, versus I'm just showing up doing my job day in and day out. And the sad thing is if you end up staying, I see a lot of times from corporate people that I still know and are still in contact with, is that you see them become less and less engaged, because they're not being rewarded for what they're bringing to the table. So then it becomes, why do I try? Why do I even, why do I make this extra effort? Why don't I just do the bare minimum that I know I'm going to have to do? And I get my 1.5% raise at the end of the year for my cost of living, and I just go on and I don't do anything. And then you watch people start dying inside. And so that's one of the ways we kind of tackle that fear issue too, is this how you want to feel the rest of your life? Or is there something out there that can bring you more joy and more satisfaction so that you have, you bring that energy into other things, whether it's your family or whether it's your friends or your significant other, whatever you want to look at it. If you're down every day, or you feel like you've been beaten, or you feel like I have no motivation to do this, it doesn't change when you walk in the door at home. It may get better, but it's going to take you 30 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour to get out of that mindset and into something else. And if you think about the amount of time that you're missing or that you're wasting feeling those feelings, it's sometimes enough that makes it a kick that somebody's like, okay, I see, I need to do this because it's not just affecting me, it affects everyone around me.
Right, and I totally agree with that, and I noticed that sometimes when people do look and then they come back and the company offers to get whatever, they end up leaving down the road anyway, right?
Mhm.
Because it's nothing changes. It's the same scenario. Our problem, like in our industry, was with 2020, we did so much volume of loans. We did what we normally do in 10 years in 1 year, and it burned so many people out. They just quit the industry, right? Some of the best processors we've ever had, just like, I'm done. The younger ones were the ones that were like, I quit, right? The older ones, like, I've been through this. This is, and I was like, you learned so much during this period of time. And now and they're like, I'm done. I'm going to go in a totally different industry. I'm going to go work with kids. I'm like, it must have been really bad if you want to go work with kids.
I have to agree with you on that one.
So what I'm getting at is it's very important that you do, where you're working, you really want to work there. And it's the same thing when you go out and start your own company, because you're going to deal with the same thing that you have. And I had a person on about, culture. It's about setting up your culture that you want in your company that you don't like in the old company. Or what we did is we had somebody who was very active about, she wanted certain things. So I said, okay, help me build the culture that everybody wants here. Let's put that together. And you're in charge of that. I'll pay you this to help me do that. And it helped build that. But it's not going to change that person. Are you following what I'm getting at? Because they
Yeah.
still are. Sometimes those type of people, no matter what you do, you can never make happy. And you have to, and that's like clients. Some clients you can never make happy, and you have to be okay with that. And sometimes you have to fire clients, just like sometimes you have to get rid of problems in your company. There's no way you can fix it. And the same thing's going to happen when you start your own company.
Yeah, I heard someone say, like even the worst boss that you have, you learn something, and that's what you learn, what you don't want
Mm.
anymore. So you learn what you want to bring with you and what you don't, and then what you don't want to look for someplace else. You don't want to put yourself back in that same situation. So, that's the other thing now too, like with being able to brand yourself and get in the places that you want to get into. You're also, I tell a lot of my clients, you're also interviewing that business. So like one of the things I always tell them to ask the interviewer that they have is, you know, what's the best day that you've had working for this company? And if they can't come up with something, if they can't tell you that there's a reason that they love being there, versus other than, hey, it's my paycheck, then, you may want to look at, is this really where I want to be? If their own employees can't tell you stories about what's great about being there, what's great about the people that are there, or, what's happening inside that organization, that's a big red flag, that, you need to interview that company as much as they're interviewing you.
Right. And so I'm prior military. I don't know if you could tell, but we get out and it's like when you're in, it's just do the damn job and get it done. There's no question. There's just focus and be totally direct. Tell me everything. You get out and you do that in the civilian world. People get upset. Don't understand why, but it's like people, you can't tell them, all right, this is what you're not doing. You're doing, do this, this, this. They get upset. And so, I mean, it's also the culture of the company and how the owners are. And so it's even for me to change, it's been difficult. And some people say, well, don't change, just hire more veterans. And I'm like, oh, that makes more sense. But the problem is where I live, there's not as many as I used to be able to when I was in San Diego. I'm in California, I'm in the Central Valley. So it's a little different. So it's hard. and today is totally different than it was 20 years ago with what younger people want from their company. They want them to be more responsive of certain things and be more, I come to work here because of what we do also on top of what we sell, right? Or whatever it
Mhm.
is, right? So
Yeah, it's like, like you look at me, like I'm a Gen Xer, like, and if you look at the statistics, like back when I think the last thing I looked at was like we might have 5 different jobs from the time that we can start working. And if you look at millennials and everything today, they're looking at 16, 17 different jobs. And but in their
in a
career
year,
that
I'm
well,
sorry.
some of them, yes, it feels like that definitely. Um, but and I look at that in kind of 2 different ways. Some of it is, I hate that you haven't found your niche and that you haven't found what you really enjoy doing and loving. But then I also look at it as, like it's kind of cool to me too, because you're not staying somewhere just to stay or just because I think I have to because I have this benefits package or just because, it's expected that you work for 5, 10 years and then I get to move up to the next step and then the next step. And they're not afraid to take that chance if it's not working out for them. They're just ready to go ahead and let me just try something else and do it. Goes back to that fear that you're talking about. They seem to be a little bit fearless when it comes to whether or not I've got a paycheck waiting on me or not. And, some of that changes as we get older and we've got families and responsibilities and house payments and different things like that. But, it's almost like I wish we could have a happy medium between people. It's like you have our Gen Xers that are like, so set that this is the way it's going to be. We work 25 years, we work 30 years, we get our retirement, we get our this, that sometimes I wish some of them would had a little bit of that um, spunk, I don't know, for lack of a better word, that just says, "This is not the fit for me, and let me try something else," and just have the faith that things are gonna actually work out, and know that you have those skills and abilities that are gonna make it happen.
Right. And I totally agree. But I also think the younger ones right now that's coming of age, 18, 19, 20, into in my son's generation is is closer to us than the ones in between where they're
Mhm,
like, okay, he's like, I'm going in the army, I'm gonna be here, I'm gonna extend, I'm gonna be a nurse, I'm gonna do this. He's focused, already know what he wants, right? Where I think the problem was in between those certain years, we were not the best parents or the best this for those kids, and we didn't want many of our kids to work. Many of them didn't have to. When I was a kid, I didn't have a choice. If I wanted gas in my truck, I had to go work,
mhm.
right? My mom wouldn't give me a buck. I mean, she literally wouldn't give me a buck. So it's a totally different world. And we have, and that's that whole thing about hard times make hard people and soft times make weak people. And I'm not saying that all the people are weak. I'm just saying we've gone through that, and now we're going through a period where with COVID, and there was a period of time with the Great Recession that really changed those people during that period of time, and some kids that were of age because what happened to their parents and other things. So some things have happened. So we're changing certain generations because of what has happened to us. And I think COVID is one of those that's going to change a lot of different people where everybody's different now. And so you're right. So there's a generation that's going to be the way they are. And then there's all these other generations that are coming.
Mhm. And the interesting with COVID, like they're talking now the great resignation, like because so many people have, like they've worked from home for a while, they've got to experience some different things. They've done a reality check on what's important to me. And you're seeing more and more now people are looking to make those kind of changes, whether it is starting their own business or whether it is finding a different career path to take. And, the thing now is, there's so many people are wanting, I like this home thing. I want to work remotely. And, the thing that you're seeing in the job markets and everything is that more and more businesses are open to some of those kind of things, either some kind of hybrid schedules or, working with people to come up with a package that works for them and also for the company. And I think that's another thing that we're going to see continue for, several months down the road that has come from COVID. And, it makes it even that much more important that you have that image of who you are and what you want to do firmly out there so that you can ask for these things that you want and that you can develop the packages that you think you deserve as far as compensation and benefits and everything else.
Yeah, see, all my processing side and all the admin side work from home. Still this day. And there was two reasons. One, I didn't want to wear a mask at the office. So they all went home so I could go in the office, because my wife works from home and there's just no way we both can be at the house at the same time. You know, I'm too loud, as you can tell. I can be in the background and, I'm talking. I can hear you. I'm on a meeting. Okay, well, I guess I'll go to the office. But I think that's important going forward. But the biggest challenge is training new people for that job so that they can work from home. And I think that's where that's the challenge right there. Going into a different industry, learning it, and being able to work from home. My people already had done the job and did the job. And so it's different. So I think that's the biggest challenge going forward.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that? I mean, that's how do you train and then have them go home, right? Because you have no control over what they do and what their responsibility is. Certain companies can tell by what you're doing and certain things, and we
Tracking your
know by what
computers, different things.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But some people cheated. They get those little click buttons that click on the thing, right?
Yeah.
Or a fan that moves the mouse. I've seen the pictures. But for us, we know transactions, they have to hit a certain point. There's certain things they need to do. If it's not happening, we can figure that out. And it's always been, for me, it's not how many hours you put in on it. It's just how fast can you get it done faster. We can do more. That's all I care about is a job. Even though I pay hourly, it's about getting the transaction done. So I don't care if you do, 4 hours or 6 hours or 8 hours and you still do the same volume. I'm good with that if that's what our numbers are.
Yeah, and most companies really are result driven. Like if you're getting the results, if you do it in 6 versus 8, most places are pretty happy with that. And if you can do it from home and you still make those numbers and you're still doing those kind of things, I think we're going to see more and more of different options being put out there for people to be able to, I want to pick this one, I want to pick that one, and I'm going to pick this one so that this is what works for me. And I'm going to show you that I can be as productive and I can impact your bottom line as much as anybody else can doing it that way.
And it's amazing. They're always on time when they're at home.
Yeah. No traffic, no anything.
Because I had one of mine, she's a great lady, but she was always late. But now she's early on the morning Zoom. Shocking. But it was really nice to get to know you today. Is there anything else you want to say before we go?
I just encourage everybody that, if you are in a place where you're not feeling that you are producing the way you want to produce, or that you're just tired of being there and you no longer have the motivation to be there, is to stop and just take a look and evaluate what's important to you. Do you look at it, do you want to spend another 10, 15 years doing this kind of thing, and not to let that fear of what if or what's out there to stand in your way. And know that there's tons of resources out there that if you're interested in it, that there's so many things that you can do to position yourself in a way that you can make these changes successfully, whether it is a new career or starting your own. That I just encourage so many people, like, don't stay miserable. Actually take that chance and make that step. The first thing to action is just the first step. And if you make the first one, then the second one is easier and the third one is easier, and pretty soon you've walked that mile and you've gotten to where you want to go. And so that would be the last thing that I would really say, is just encourage people to take that first step and actually start looking and doing something towards that.
Chellie Phillips, thank you so much for being on Inner Edison.
Thank you. I've enjoyed being here with you today.
All right. And then what I want to challenge everybody to do is, if you like what we're doing here, follow us. But your call to action today is basically reevaluate what you're doing right now. Make sure that's what you want to do. And if it's not, start making those changes going forward. And again, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you. I've enjoyed it.